It is finished. Of the last sayings of Christ on the cross, none is more important or more poignant than, "It is finished." Found only in the Gospel of John, the Greek word translated, "it is finished," is tetelestai, an accounting term that means paid in full. When Jesus uttered those words, he was declaring the debt owed to his Father was wiped away completely and forever. Not that Jesus wiped away any debt that he owed to the Father. Rather, Jesus eliminated the debt owed by mankind, the debt of sin. And if, like me, any of you have ever been at the side of a precious friend or family member who was whispering final words in their last moments here on earth, you know the incredible heart connection they hold for you, personally. We often find ourselves clinging to those words as we think about a loved one who has passed away. We treasure what they said, and we remember. There's no doubt that Jesus knew what his last words needed to be here in this life. He knew the power those final words would have for generations still to come. And he had great purpose in them, which still breathes such life and meaning for our lives today. The meaning of "it is finished," and why it's so significant. "It is finished" proclaims that all the work the Father had sent him to accomplish was now completed, particularly his work of bearing the penalty for sins. This means there was no more penalty left to be paid for sins, for all Jesus' suffering was finished. See Hebrews 1:3, 9:11 and 12:25 through 28. Did Jesus ever sin? The Bible is clear in reminding us that Jesus had no sin. He had lived a perfect life. He was without blemish, and this is the only way he could fulfill the purpose that God has sent him to do. Though he was tempted in all things, just as we are, he had lived a holy life. Hebrews 4:15. There was no other way for the door to be opened for us to have a relationship with God, but by the forgiveness of our own sin, through Christ's payment on our behalf. A lot happened at these final hours. This was a day of miracles. The day became dark in the middle of the day. It was nature's way to signify that something of great importance has just happened. The Jewish kept time by first hour, second hour, and so on. So the 6th hour through the 9th hour was from noon till 3 that afternoon. For at the very moment that Jesus breathed his last breath, the temple veil that covered the entrance to the Holy of Holies, the actual dwelling place of God among the people, was torn in two from top to bottom. Matthew 27:51. Sometimes in our minds we may picture a thin veil covering this entrance, but history records that the veil was about 60 feet tall and up to 4 inches in thickness. The size of the veil would have made it impossible for any human to tear it in 2 pieces. This was a complete miracle from God's hand, signifying that he had opened the door for us to come in and have a relationship with him. What does Jesus' death mean for us? Up until the time of Christ's death, there was a system set in place where sacrifices had to be offered for sin. It was complicated and it was difficult. Frequent sacrifices were required for all types of things. It was the only way people could be forgiven. It was the only way to be made right again. People sin every day. They did then and we do now. And that sin costs us greatly. It separates us from God. It sets up a barrier. It leads to further drifting away from what we know to be right, and often leads us to great despair. But the hope that we have now because of Christ's death on the cross and his ultimate sacrifice on our behalf is this. He completed the work. He paid the sacrifice in full on our behalf. No other payment is needed. He just asks that we accept his gift of forgiveness and life. Jesus came to save. He came to rescue us, a people without true hope, to give us a lasting life and freedom that we can only find through him. Did people know who Jesus was? Lives were changed that day. Jesus cried out those powerful words. Many began to realize who Jesus really was, the truth revealed. They could no longer deny it. Matthew 27:54. Now the centurion, and those who were with him keeping guard over Jesus, when they saw the earthquake and the things that were happening, became very frightened and said, "Truly this was the Son of God." The realization sank deep. The truth had the power to change lives, to make all things new, to offer fresh starts, new beginnings, forgiveness, and purpose. Lives are still being changed today by the one who saved us from a debt we could never fully pay. How can we find peace and courage from Jesus? If you find yourself in a hard place today, take courage, my friends. Only in Christ is true peace to be found. He reminded us in his word that in this life we would have troubles, but we can find courage because he has overcome the world. John 16:33. In spite of the struggles we may face in this life, we never walk alone, for He is with us. He will never abandon us in our trials or leave us to work it all out on our own. Jesus never called us to embrace the world and all it offers, but He calls us to take up our own cross and to follow Him, to be salt and light, and to walk in love. It's a whole new day ahead, and He has plans for you, for me, to make a difference in these days, in the life of another soul, for His purposes. Praying that His huge grace, wisdom, and strength cover us today, and that in Him we will find freedom from worry as we let go of the stress that clings too tightly, the pressing needs of tomorrow, and struggles we battle today, so that we can fully embrace His gift of forgiveness and love. He's the overcomer, and we are never alone. I thank God for each and every one of you listening, especially my brothers and sisters in Christ. Let's keep each other in prayer, and God's will be done. Thank you for your attention. Like and subscribe. God bless.